Let's go back to our, well, first of all, I want to talk about this, the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act expires Thursday at midnight. We're talking about it here with some of the votes. 72% of you say it should be renewed. Today, on the Senate floor, Majority Leader Harry Reid had a harsh rebuke for Kentucky Republican Rand Paul, who wants to amend the act. Reid suggested Paul was making it easier for terrorists to get weapons and to attack the U.S. by calling for the changes. Take a listen to this.
If the senator from Kentucky refuses to relent, the government will be unable to fully pursue these leads. That would increase the risk of a retaliatory terrorist strike against the homeland and hamper our ability to deal a truly fatal blow to al-Qaeda.
It got pretty heated there in the exchange. We're going to have a full piece on this tomorrow. Chuck, a lot of people say about the Patriot Act, and that's basically where Ron Paul and Rand Paul and others who question it, how far you can go.
Well, I never thought I'd hear myself saying this, but I heartily agree with Harry Reid on this one. I really think he might have put it a little crudely, but what Rand Paul is doing is countering provisions that have been actually some of the more moderate and widely accepted provisions of the Patriot Act, such as roving wiretaps, that are basically updating existing legal doctrine to take account of new technology. And for him to sort of try and elevate that to the level of some great issue of constitutional principle, I think shows how very extreme he is. I mean, this, after all, is a guy who voted against the Ryan budget on the grounds that it didn't cut spending enough, not because he was trying to respond to scare tactics on Medicare. I think that these provisions are likely to pass. I think it's a good thing that they're not a subject of partisan dispute anymore. And let's see if Mr. Paul can't grow up a little bit.
Ricky from Virginia says, "My God, can't you see the freedoms that have been taken away?" I mean, people do get animated about this, Charles.
No, I understand, and I think those arguments were live arguments 10 years ago when the law was proposed, and we weren't sure how empirically it would turn out. It looked as if there might be openings for large abuses. Well, we've had a decade now of experience with it, and the warnings and all the the predictions we'd be a police state have simply not panned out. Is there anybody who has a sense that they're being watched in a way they weren't before, or that their freedoms are curtailed? I haven't seen any of it. I think it's been a remarkably crafted attempt to deal with a real issue, which is terrorists inside the country or outside. And I think it's not that the parties have switched on this. The reason there's now a national consensus, well, two reasons. A, it's worked, and we haven't had a second catastrophic attack. And B, the Democrats who demagogued all of this in 2001 and 2002 because it was an issue are now in power, and the demagoguery is over because they have to look after the safety of the American people. So I think it's extremely healthy that it's now a consensus issue. And Rand Paul is not, he's a small minority among conservatives who's a libertarian and who will oppose almost anything of this sort on principle, which I respect. But it's not a reflection of republicanism or Republicans.
Well, although the libertarian string of the Republican Party is increasing, and it's, the Tea Party is an example of that. So there are more and more people who call themselves Republicans or vote Republican who have this.
And, well, I would agree. It's always been a very strong strain among conservatism throughout American history, waxing and wanes, but within very narrow limits. It's not a governing ideology. And that's why it never wins. I think it's an important influence. It pulls us away from extreme measures, and I think it reminds us of our obligations to the Constitution. But it's still a minority, and Rand Paul is not a representative of the larger Republican Party on this.
Last word on this, from the libertarian strain himself.
Well, I think that's an incredibly important impulse, and the fact that we have more libertarians making arguments or finding a home in the Republican Party today is altogether a good thing, largely because of the kinds of arguments that Rand Paul raises when he raises them theoretically, when he talks about an overweening state, both on the questions of civil liberties and primarily, in my view, on economics. I think he makes some sense. In this case, what Charles argues, I think, is right. If you look back at the way that the law was originally crafted, it's been amended repeatedly over the years to take out some of the things that caused some of the objections early on. So they're these provisions that Rand Paul is complaining about, as Chuck notes, just don't seem to be problematic in practice.
On domestic issues, I was a great society liberal. I grew up in that kind of atmosphere. I don't have anything to be, I wasn't ashamed of it.